Boy, you can't ask for anything better than that.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. My goodness. What an absolute gem of a game that was. Look, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Sorry if I'm a little discombobulated. I'm sure a lot of you are too. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I want to thank FanDuel. I want to thank you every day for being here every day. And thank you, newbies, for being here today. Jimmy Stein can't make it today, but y'all can forgive him. I mean, he's probably had a heart attack somewhere. Maybe one of the most unbelievable games, as my brother was calling me, probably to talk about this game. Maybe one of the most unbelievable games you'll ever see. And I have no problem saying this, that going into the game, as I'm trying to get some stuff, I used to have some stuff on there for y'all to see. Going into this game, I thought, okay, win, lose, or draw is not going to be that big of a deal. I didn't know it was going to turn into the best basketball game of the year. It was a classic. Look, and I'll get to Chad Baker-Mazara later. He has no place in college basketball. We'll get to that later. But if you take Chad Baker-Mazara out of this thing, it's the best two teams in the country in a great environment going head to head. Jimmy Dykes, for all of his not so great talk today, I mean, he was really sort of, I mean, again, Alabama fans have sort of a thing for Jimmy Dykes right now in a negative way, and I'm starting to get it. But who could you have chosen to be the MVP no matter who wins? Is it Mark Sears because he hits the game winner? I mean, at the time when he said that, we didn't know that he was going to hit the game winner, of course. But I mean, Amori played his tail off. Grant Nelson was ridiculous and posterized one of the best defenders in the country. Is it LeBaron Philon, who was playing out of his mind, who hit two unbelievable free throws late in the game? I mean, for a freshman to do that. But I mean, what if Auburn had won? Is it Todd Pettiford, who kept him in the game for a long time? Is it Janai Broome? Probably, because he hit two big threes later. But without Pettiford, Auburn's not even in this game. Cardwell played amazing defense, other than the poster dunk that I talked about. Just unbelievable. Somebody said, "Where is Asian Jimmy?" I may have to text him and tell him to get on. But I don't think I've got time to do it. And really, I'm just sort of throwing this together. So I want y'all to be with me for a minute. I'm sitting here with my daughter who's in from Ohio and my other daughter who's 8 years old. And we're just jumping up and hugging one another. And I have no problem saying going into this game, I was like, hey, I mean, we may win it, but it'll probably be because Auburn plays poorly. And because Auburn sort of, they've already won the SEC, and kudos to them. And then I thought, well, we may lose because it's senior day and, Alabama's out of gas. I talked to somebody within the program before the game, and they were like, yeah, we're a little bit out of gas right now. We can get it back. We need some rest. But rough. Anyway, but when that game got going, when things got good, it was an NCAA tournament game. I don't know why. It probably shouldn't be, but it really is sort of it's refreshing because it's a regular season game. Doesn't mean a ton, but it meant something to everybody on that court. And because I think everybody felt that. Twitter felt that. Obviously the jungle felt that. I'm going to go ahead and say again, I give Auburn credit, great atmosphere. I give Auburn's team credit. I mean, they've been the best team all year long. Still think Florida is the best team in the SEC right now. And shoot, apparently Bruce Pearl told Dickie V that. And I certainly get it. But my goodness. I'm just sort of at a loss. This is, not the grave digger, but it's something because the regular season basketball games typically don't mean as much, and it won't. But it was big for this team. I think it's big for this team to get its swagger a little bit. And it was a big deal, and we needed the momentum. Look, we took a gut punch against Tennessee, and then took a karate kick to the face by Florida, and then we took an elbow to the back of the head, literally and figuratively, in this Auburn game. and then came back and won it. I mean, look, for all the doubters on this team, and they've been a lot of them. Y'all need to understand this team's as good as anybody. They just went to the number one team in the country's place and beat them on their floor. Now, you want to say, hey, it didn't mean anything? I would have agreed with you going into the game. If you watch that game, you can tell it meant something. It dang sure meant something to Janai Broome, who I'd probably vote for the best. I would give him the Player of the Year award. I think Cooper Flagg is a better player, no doubt. He'll definitely be a better pro, but I think Janai Broome probably earned it because of the league and his consistency. So I think that just an unbelievable contest. It's a classic, and I'm so happy about the class, not just because we won, which is thrilling, but I do a show with an Auburn friend of mine earlier today, locally for the Alexander City area, and we both said, just both coaches sort of went into this saying this, if you lose, not a big deal. Is like both coaches were preparing for a loss, which made us think, okay, maybe this is going to be sort of sloppy. It was the antithesis of that. Alabama had some bad turnovers. That turnover by Jaron Stevenson off a miss that probably could have sealed it was just ridiculously bad. But so many unsung heroes in this game. And it just meant so much to everybody out there. And that, honest to God, I want to tell y'all the truth. This may be sacrilege to some of y'all out there who are college basketball fanatics, if any of y'all exist on Locked On Bama right now. Tell me why this isn't a better right. Tell me why this shouldn't have been the highlight game over Duke, North Carolina. Tell me why. I mean, Duke and North Carolina, while they have played some historically great games, I remember some dunks by Vince Carter and Stackhouse and Christian Laettner. I mean, I remember all that stuff. It's been a minute. Alabama and Auburn's a better rivalry right now. It's the best rivalry in the country. And for those watching Locked On Bama saying, why are you giving Auburn credit? Because you should give them credit. They're good. They're really good. And it's okay to say that. And it was just a fantastic game. I hope this state embraces it the way it should be embraced. And understands that we're standing at the mountaintop. Now, I guess the mountaintop, we're right at the mountaintop. Neither one of us won a natty, but both of us been to the Final Four in the last 6 years. I'd be kind of shocked if one or both doesn't make it to the Final Four this year. So be happy. And also, if you're an Alabama fan, don't sit there and just downgrade Auburn. This is our biggest win of the year, and frankly, it's not that close. So this needs to be celebrated and understood. Who knows, man? And it's also, I gotta see. I think it moves Alabama up a notch in the SEC. I think they moved to number 3 in the SEC tournament standings now. So they're out of Auburn's bracket. So my God, Gertie, we could have Alabama-Auburn final in Nashville, Alabama-Auburn in the Final Four for the Natty or something. Holy cow. That seems like it's not right and wouldn't be good for anybody's health. I want to tell you guys about FanDuel really quickly, though, man. I hope some of y'all were on FanDuel playing FanDuel today, because it certainly would have been fun. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, sometimes like a buzzer beater by, Alabama over Auburn. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Of course, it's America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, let's talk a little. Let's go ahead and get this see me part of the stuff out of the way. Chad Baker-Mazara. If you take him out again, it's the game of the year, and I don't know that it's even all that close. But he is in there. If you're an Auburn fan, at some point you're going to have to say, I don't want this guy representing us anymore. He has done this too much, too often. He's 25 years old. He's dirty. He's just flat dirty. There's no other way to say it. And he tried to throw a bit of a bow on the first time to Youngblood's head. And then he legit threw a bow. It wasn't unintentional. I saw some message. Oh, it wasn't. It was definitely intentional, 100%. And he almost cost his team again. I don't know that they're not better off without him. Honestly, I think the game's better off without him. It would be one thing if this were a one-time deal. I think we can all chalk it up to, man, I've lost my cool playing basketball and playing football and playing all those things before. We've all lost our cool. But when you do it multiple times like he has, it's awful. And it's just, you elbow somebody like that in the back of the head. I don't understand why that's different. Why they don't look at that like targeting. Honest to God. I mean, you hit somebody in the head. It's you talk about helmet to helmet contact. At least you have the helmet on. A bow to the back of the head can be extremely dangerous. And just no place for it. And hopefully the SEC comes out and says something about it. Surely to God they will. So you got to hope that they do something like that, or maybe Bruce Pearl will come out and say something. I just don't. Please, Bruce Pearl, don't defend that. Don't defend that in any way. That's all I ask. I mean, I know most Alabama fans have a low bar for anything Auburn, right? Because I'm in the Alex City area, I know Bruce Pearl is doing some really good things. Some Alabama fans don't want to hear this. He's a pretty good person. Now does he have a past? We all got a past. Yeah, he's got a past. I don't want him defending this. I hope he doesn't. I really hope there's no defense of it. So I hope that he says something about it. And in terms of there's no place for that in the game. And we're going to have to talk with Chad Baker about this. Because, all you've heard so far is, hey, this guy's coming back next year, apparently. At age 26, he'll be, something's sort of wrong with that. But anyway, going back to the game. And frankly, I haven't even had time. I wanted to go straight live because I wanted to be in this moment. It's unbelievable that all Alabama and Auburn both get in the 90s. It took overtime. The halftime score was 45-42. And so you think clearly both of them are on pace to be very close to 90, if not over it. And it took overtime. And then Auburn hits the first shot in overtime. Alabama had the ball or at least had an opportunity to have the ball up to in overtime. And instead they give it back to Auburn on a fumbled free throw. Alabama still made mistakes in this game. Here's another thing. I'm just looking at the stats right now. Alabama was only 7-22 from beyond the arc. It's not awful. It's not the worst. But they're only 16-24 from the stripe. They got to be better. Where Alabama got a little fortunate, Auburn was only 11-17 from the stripe. And before anybody says, well, see, look how many more free throws Alabama took. At least 2 of those free throws were on the flagrant foul. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's also say that LeBaron Phyline on that floater late in the game, he was decked. Tackled by Dylan Cardwell. Let me shut this door. Tackled by Dylan Cardwell and no call. Unbelievably. Janai Broome, he just doesn't get called for fouls very often. Again, there'll be Auburn fans who say he doesn't go to the stripe enough. I get it. I think it washes out in that regard. But overall, I think both teams have gripes with the refs, which is fine with me. I think if both teams have gripes, like legit gripes, and you don't feel like the refs cost you, I think the refs sort of did their job, right? So I don't think it was a referee thing. I think it was I think it was just a tight game, and in a game like that that's so hotly contested and so passionate. And again, I keep going back to this. Is anybody else just shocked and how passionate that game was. Now, don't come at me with, well, Luke, of course, it's Alabama and Auburn. We've watched Alabama here lately. They've been a little gassed. We watched Auburn play against Texas A&M, and again, one thing that really worried me about this Auburn game, Auburn got to play Texas A&M on a Tuesday. Alabama played on a Wednesday, and we're going to play them on senior night on 1 day fewer rest. And before you tell me that's not a big deal, trust me, it's a big deal. That extra day of rest, just like getting, you know, if that's just like getting extra day of rest in the SEC title game. AJ Evans says, set your blank up if you think nobody took that game seriously. I don't. I mean, I obviously took it seriously, and I'm shocked. I'm going to tell you this, AJ. I don't think you're talking to me. I think you're talking to somebody earlier. But I'm shocked how seriously all the players took it, and not because I don't believe in them, but because the coaches. If you listen to the coaches yesterday in their various press conferences, they were saying, "Well, Bruce Pearl said something like, if we lose this game, it's not because of this." And Nate Oates said essentially the same thing, which made me think they're thinking, okay, we want to go in there and play hard and hope for the best, but win, lose, or draw, it's sort of not a big deal. And it turned out to be a massive deal. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm so excited it's a massive deal, but I'm just a little surprised because of the lack of, I guess, the lack of attention that that the game was getting from the coaches. And another thing, Alabama did beat the number 1 team in the country on the road. Here's another question. Do you put Duke ahead of Auburn? Do you put Duke ahead of Auburn right now for the number 1 in the poll? I mean, Auburn just lost 2 games this week. And if Duke goes into North Carolina and wins, and I think they will, does Duke go to number 1? And is that a good thing for Auburn? Could this mess around and be a good thing for Auburn in the sense that now they're going to get motivation? I would almost be willing to bet now Cooper Flagg has Player of the Year sewn up as long as he doesn't, go 1 for 20 tonight. And so I think that's good for Auburn. It gives them more motivation. Meanwhile, for Alabama, again, I'm going to say that I talked to somebody associated with the program before the game, and they were like, yeah, we're running on fumes right now, but we feel like we can get it back. But the double bye is so important, that extra rest. And he was pessimistic about today. I'll say that. And he was like, never say never, but yeah, it's going to be a tough ask. And we go in there and beat the number 1 team in the country. I mean, just celebrate it, y'all. Celebrate it. Have a good time with it. Jimmy and I will be on tomorrow to talk about it a lot more. And man, just what an unbelievable contest. That is what basketball is all about, except for the Chad Baker-Mazara stuff. That's what basketball is all about. And kudos to Auburn for fighting tooth and nail. Kudos to Alabama for playing their tail off and hitting the game winner. Also, we should say this. One other thing that should be said before I sign off, because I got to go. I'm sorry. But so Nate Oates has caught some grief. He caught some grief at the end of the half, I think it was, where we were trying to get a 3-pointer off, and Dylan Cardwell blocked Mark Sears, and he was just sort of dribbling it out, right? And then he puts his faith in Mark Sears again. He gives the ball to Mark Sears, sort of a fake give back, and then the defender goes underneath, I think, if I remember right, underneath Sears, and Sears turns left, is able to get around his defender and get to his left hand and put up a shot that's a floater. Obviously not a great, not a high percentage shot, but in that moment with Mark Sears, is there anybody else you'd want taking it? I wouldn't. I wouldn't want the ball in Mark Sears' hands every single time down the stretch. And maybe this is something that lights a fire right up under Alabama. Let me say one other thing before I sign off, because I was unfortunately I had to listen to some of the Auburn broadcasts on the radio right when the dunk by Grant Nelson, which was ridiculous. And they were like, throw him out. I hope they kept I didn't listen to it, but I hope they kept that, a lot more of that energy for Chad Baker-Mazara. I hope they kept it, because doing a crane thing when Alabama and Auburn have been sort of flip-flopping on the crane stuff for a while and barely doing it. He was really sort of like a half crane. and calling for somebody to be thrown out. And then Chad Baker-Mazara does what he does. I hope they kept that same energy. Justin Clayton, Auburn buddy of mine, says Jedi Broom went for 34, which can't hurt. And it can't hurt for Player of the Year. And this is what's unfair about Player of the Year. We know this, that, when you lose a game like that, and Jedi Broom should probably get even more credit for this game because he hit those 2 big threes late, right? But he did miss the game winner at the end of regulation. And you thought, okay, maybe if he had hit that, I think he might have made the race over for him. But again, I'm going to say as long as Cooper Flagg doesn't screw up tonight, I think he wins it. I would vote for Jedi Broom. I'll say it again. I'm being completely unbiased. I would vote for him. That being said, I know how these things work. And also Dickie V seems to be stumping for Cooper Flagg, which would irritate me a little bit if I were an Auburn fan. And I keep saying I'm going to sign off. I can't quit talking about this thing. It says, what will it take for Bama to get a 1 seed? I think they got to win the tournament. Now, here's that's a great question. You know what? We're going to do one more segment. I just can't stand it. So it's happening. So y'all just bear with me. Okay, so what will it take for Bama to get a number 1 seed? That's a good question from AJ Evans. I think they have to win the tournament. Now, that begs the question, do you want to win it? Now, it seems like of course you do. You're playing in it, you want to win it. And when the ball tips off, I want to win it. I can see a positive to going out in the first round. I swear I can. Yeah, it would be nice, but I mean, if you're the last number 1, you're going to probably get not a great venue. I mean, we're not going to get the South. Auburn's going to get the South. We're not going to get the East. Duke's going to get the East. So then you're at West and Midwest. And let's assume Florida probably gets that other one. Duke and Auburn and Florida, and maybe us, maybe Houston. And then if Houston is in it, I would think they would get the Midwest, even though I guess Texas is always considered West. I don't know. But I don't know that I want to do that. I guess we'll just wait and see. I mean, when they tip it off, of course, you want to win it. And if Alabama and Auburn meet again in Nashville, it'd be unbelievable, and the place would be going nuts. And I'd be into it. And I'd say the same thing that I said before this game. In the end, it probably doesn't matter that much, but I want to win it. And so I'm really okay with just being locked in at a 2. I don't want to be in Auburn's or Duke's bracket. I want to be a 2 in Houston. Ooh, actually, I want to be a 2 in Houston's bracket. I don't want to be a 2 in Florida's bracket either. I think Florida's the best team in the country right this minute. May change. Doesn't mean we can't beat them. Just think Florida's kind of a matchup nightmare for us, especially the way we were the other night, which is very banged up. Let me also say this. I've seen a lot of things about Grant Nelson here in the comments. Grant played his best game of the year. I don't know that that's his season high. I haven't looked at it that much. He did have 23. I don't remember a game where he had 23 or more. He had 8 big rebounds, 1 huge one late in the game that he got fouled on. By the way, he took Broom to the hole one time, pump faked about 3 times, goes up, he got fouled. They don't call it on Broom. It's 100% a foul. 100% would be called most of the time. Wasn't called then. He played through it. I'm not complaining about the officiating. I want y'all to recognize that this man played through it. And I think that that's a sign of toughness. And very excited for him to be like that. But he had 23 points, 8 big rebounds. He was 8 of 15 and 3 of 6 from beyond 3-point line. He took one at the beginning of the second half. That was a bad shot. We need Chris Youngblood to get right. You know, those 2 missed. A key point in the game when Chad Baker was thrown out, and he should have been. And Chris Youngblood goes to the stripe to shoot 2. I almost wanted anybody else to shoot him. I mean, you just got bowed in the back of the head. You've already got a cut above your eye. The crowd's on you because they feel like you probably baited CBM into all this stuff, and you're at the free throw line by yourself. I don't know. I guess the protocol would be Auburn would get to choose a free throw shooter, I think. And so maybe, and Chris Youngblood is a good free throw shooter. He is a good free throw shooter. Like, he's got a good percentage. But he's 0-2 today, and he's missed. He hadn't been as good late in the season as he was earlier in the season. But LeBaron Philon going 4-4 from the stripe was huge. He's only 1 of 5 from beyond the arc, but his one was monster. Omori 7 of 7, and they said this on the broadcast. I believe it to be true. I can't wait to look it up. Either all of them were dunks, or I think one of them early on was sort of a finger roll that, I mean, is practically a dunk. Somebody said, Luke, good job not being on mute. Thank you. It would have been very awkward if I'd come here and been on mute by myself talking into the void in my little office. And, that would have been weird. I'm not saying I hadn't done it, and I'm not saying I'm not a threat to do it again. I'm saying it would have been weird. I want to get back to some more of these stats. Here's another thing. For Aiden Holloway's sake, I hope we don't see Auburn again. I mean, he is not playing well against them. They do a good job against him. He did hit a big 3-pointer and it was a smart 3-pointer. I don't know if he knew this. Turned out to be incredibly smart for him to take that shot when Auburn was down a man. And they ended up, Auburn, I mean, they blew the whistle and dead ball and all that stuff afterwards, but it was incredibly smart, because if he had pulled it back, they would have allowed Auburn to get their 5th defender back. So very, very big play by him. All right. I do have to run. Appreciate you guys so very much. Man, thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button. Jimmy and I'll be here to talk about this a lot more tomorrow. And until then, Roll Tide, everybody.